ARCHON Rogue is a deck that's been introduced in the new mini set, the Starcraft Heroes of Starcraft. The idea behind the deck is to be able to get to your Sonya and then reduce your cost down of your High Templar down to 1, and then you can use Cover Artist to combo it down in addition to your extra damage. With that, you can deal up to 24 damage in a single turn using the different buffs and different the different cover artists and things like that, so it helps deal quite a lot of damage onto your opponent. If they're obviously not at mana gain class, it means that you can do it quite easily. Some cards that are quite powerful in terms of making sure that you are able to do the combo is you're using Chrono Boost to help you draw your cards that you need, your Templars and your Artanis and your Photon Cannon, which is the things that reduce down the cost of your cards. The other thing that does reduce down your cost is your 5 cost Pirate, which is able to reduce the cost of all minions down to down by 3, or reduce the cost of all cards down by 3. You can use that with Void Ray, which would then make it 0, and then it'll be able to get its extra 2/2 buff, making it a 5/3. Or you can use it with Artanis to be able to get it down as a 3-drop, or like I do in some other games, you're able to use prep, then play down the 5-drop, then use one of your 4-cost spells such as your Dubious Purchase or your Chrono Boost to be able to get a big swing of tempo onto the board. The cards you want to mulligan for in this deck is Chrono Boost, Prep, Swat Sleep, the Swordshiner, and your Quick Pick. And the idea behind those cards is that you're able to draw quite a few cards throughout your deck, and you also establish quite a lot of tempo through that particular play as well. The ways to reduce down your cost of your Templars, you can use the Photon Cannon, which can be used twice to be able to reduce it down to 4, and then your Pirates can reduce it down further. Or you can use Artanis to reduce down by 2 as well, so that would then put it as 4 as well. Keep in mind that if you do use Artanis and Photon Cannons, it means that you won't be able to get it down as a 1-drop, so you won't be able to use the Sonya combo onto it, but potentially you may not need to use it, as you'll see in a lot of my gameplay footage that I don't end up using the particular combo that much for it. Going into the gameplay footage that I have here, I've just won the game against the Hunter. I used Deafen just before using my Photon Cannons, just in case they had an Ice Block, to make sure that I had the correct damage to your lethal, and this was turn 5. I had a very good start, having the 2 Chrono Boosts in my opening hand, along with the Swordshiner as well. So going into the mulligan, I am looking for Swordshiner, I'm looking for Quick Pick, and I'm also looking for Chrono Boost in preparation. They're your highest impact and highest win rate cards. Quick Pick obviously is very valuable in terms of drawing extra cards for you, and your Swordshiner is able to give it extra buff, make it deal more damage, but also allow you to draw an extra card, extra 2 cards through it as well, because of the fact that you swing once, then you put it to a 3/3, and then you can swing an extra 3 more times, so it makes it so you can swing a total of 4 times, which is really powerful. Going into this turn, they're using Dubious Purchase. They're probably playing a similar deck to me. I did just run to my Scoundrel, which would be quite useful on turn 5 or turn 4 if I use the coin for it too. I end up playing down my Quick Pick, dealing face, and then just drawing the extra card with it. I played on my Swordshiner here, and then I'm just going to go face with the weapon. It obviously is dealing damage, and this type of rogue deck doesn't run any ways to deal with the weapon swing like that. It doesn't have any lifesteal or any heal cards or anything. They end up just trading into my Swordshiner with their Divine Shield. I do have a backstab here as well, so I use the backstab first, and then I'm going to use coin, which will then put me up to a 5-cost hand, and then I'm going to use prep. I'll play down this the Scoundrel, and then it will mean that my Dubious Purchase is free, so I'll be able to use the Dubious Purchase to take out the Divine Shield, and then obviously have the minion down on the board. And I'm just making sure that I'm not going to overdraw by using the weapon swing, which is why I held off before using the next part. So with the hand that I have here, it is quite strong because I still obviously do have the three damage weapon. They're only on 19 health as well at this point in time, so I am sitting in a relatively decent position. I do use the prep here to be able to get my Chrono boost online. Obviously, it lets me draw an extra few cards. I get another Chrono boost and I get the photon cannon. I just play down the Void Ray here just so I can trade easily, and then just go face with my Zealot. They end up using a dig for treasure, and it does hit a pirate because it shows, you can see that it has hit a pirate because of the fact that they also got a coin. The idea of what I want to be doing in this next turn is I want to make sure that I'm applying as much pressure as I can. I still don't have access to an Artanis, which is a little bit of a problem. And the reason why I didn't use Photo Cannon last turn is because if I, with the hand that I've got, if I use Artanis, it means that if I use the photo cannon, I wouldn't be able to use Artanis to reduce it down to 1, which is important for doing a Sonya play. I ended up using the backstab first there, just because it meant that I didn't overdraw, and then I use the dig for treasure here as well. It does get me the coin, and I just opt to decide to use the coin just because I don't want to overdraw at this point in time as well. And I end up playing down the Scoundrel just because I do have the other one in my hand, and then I get re-establish my weapon to be able to draw some more cards. Obviously, it does pose a significant threat towards them as well, because with the Artanis in my hand, with the Shadow Step, I'll be able to deal lethal damage next turn, even if they are able to clear this board. They end up playing down their own Artanis. They've got a decent board at the moment. They use their prep, they use their raiding party, so they're not really going to deal with too much here. Like, they'll be able to deal with 2 of my minions, but not my 3/4. And then with the Artanis being played next turn, I'll be able to deal the 12 damage to them anyway. So they end up dealing the face damage towards me using the weapon swing. And then I do also get a Shadow Step here as well. So I just play down the Artanis, and then I hit face with the 3/4. I hit face with my Artanis with my hero, my weapon, and then I have the 2 others that would deal lethal anyway. The Shadow Step obviously would get an extra 3 damage if I needed to as well. Okay, going into the next game, I'm playing against a Death Knight. Death Knight, you want to make sure that you're keeping your Deafens for their Infestor. I ended up getting rid of the Swordshiner there, which is probably a bit of a mistake, like, upon thinking of it, because I was playing as if I was playing Weapon Rogue. Dig for Treasure probably isn't a card that you want to keep too often, just because you do end up drawing into those high Templars and things like that. And you draw into your non-pirate, so you don't get the extra value of the coin coming from it. I do just equip my weapon here and just swing into one of the Zerglings. I don't want to use any of my removal here, just in case there's more important minions that they end up playing down. They use the coin here, and then they play down their Brood Queen, which I'm able to obviously deal with using my Backstab and Phantom Cannon. It does mean that in a future turn, if they do have something that's more important, that they potentially could get it onto the board. But by having the Deafen sitting in my hand, it means that I'm sitting relatively safe in terms of them being able to play an Infestor down onto me. Because they still don't have the spawning pool as well, so if they do play to the Infestor down, I'll be able to clear it without them getting the Death Rattle off. I end up drawing into another Shadow Step, so this is quite a weak hand to be dealing with for my opponent. Like, I don't really have any particular play that I want to do. I don't swing into face just in case I need to deal the 1/1s to the mini Zerglings that they'll end up summoning. They use Nidus Worms, so this could potentially have got them in an Infestor, which is something that I need to think about. They play down their spawning pool, and then they use the proc of the spawning pool, getting it set up online for their Infestor turn. They do play down their Zerglings, and then they play down the Barrage as well. By doing that, it means that they are sitting in a relatively decent position. I do draw into a High Templar, so I'm going to use that to clear the Zerglings from the board and then just Shadow Step it. Obviously, it's important to make sure that I'm dealing as best I can with their board state. They end up playing down, so they've currently got the Brood Queen on the board, which is a little bit problematic considering they are getting the extra value from the Lavas. They play down the Lurker, which isn't really too much of a concern for me. Obviously, it is going to deal some extra damage and things like that, and it is threatening some decent damage, but I'm not too worried in terms of what I need to do. I do draw into the Chrono boost, which is a decent sort of card to be having in this situation. It sets me up for future plays as well, and I do end up drawing into my Void Ray with the Chrono boost too, so I'm able to deal with their Lurker that they have on the board. Obviously, I don't want to be taking too much damage from their Lurker as well. I use one of my Shadow Steps onto the Void Ray to make it down to a free cost, since I've already used one Photon Cannon, and it means that it gets the extra buff onto it. So I end up having a relatively decent tempo in my on my board state. And then with the Artanis that's in my hand, I'd be able to use the Sonya in addition to it to be able to get the Archon. They end up playing down their Zerglings and their Banelings, so at the moment they aren't really sitting with a too strong board state against me. They end up just swinging with their Hydralisk. I end up playing down my Templar, and it does obviously clear the board that's there, and it takes just the 2 damage coming from their Death Rattles. They aren't really very strong to shout with the Banelings. Next turn I'll be able to play my Artanis down if I need to. They do use a Frost Strike onto my High Templar, so it means that they'll be able to get the extra card. And they play down their Buccaneer and Infestor, so I still am set up for this sort of combo turn that they have. I play the Artanis down here, and then I'm going to be able to use the Deafen onto it, so I'll be able to clear it without them being able to get the Death Rattle proc off. And you'll notice that my High Templar now is down to 1, so it means that I'll be able to use Archon against them. They end up using another Frost Strike here, so it does clear my Zealot, which is a little bit concerning, and they also use the Crusher, so it means that I won't be able to it means I won't be able to deal some damage using my Divine Shield on me. They obviously are dealing a little bit of face damage coming from it as well. I do have I do use Prep and Dubious Purchase just to draw into a few extra cards, just in case I do want to go for a Sonya sort of play. I play down the Scoundrel just to make sure that I am getting it set up just in case I do need it. And I am sitting in a relatively decent position to be able to use it as well by using the Archon and then using the Sonya. But the problem is if I do that, it means that I have a possibility of them being able to deal some more damage to my face, and I don't particularly want that. I just want to establish a little bit of tempo because I'm not currently in a board state that's strong, which is obviously ends up paying off with them using their Pit Boss and then using the Death Scrowl that's also in their hand that they're about to play, and then being able to clear my board with being able to also then get the minions that I ended up summoning. If they did end up taking an Archon on that turn, it would have been too much for me to be able to deal with. So they end up dealing some more damage to me with their weapon swings and their procs, and then I also do have the Caller as well to play that they play down against me too. So right now I need to make sure that I'm getting as many of my minions down as possible to be able to try and clear some of their stuff before I use the Sonya. So I end up just getting the Dubious Purchase down onto my. I end up getting the Dubious Purchase down. I then play down the Sonya because there isn't anything else that I'm going to be reducing down. I play down the Backstab onto the 1/4, and since I'm currently sitting with just the current board state, it's a 1 in 4 that they end up losing through that. 1 in 4 of sorts. And then I end up playing down the Archon. I put the Divine Shield down onto the Archon as well, and it is going to be able to clear their board while also dealing the damage to them. I put the Divine Shield onto myself to make it so I'm a little bit easier being able to deal with any Divine Shield procs and things like that. They play down their Marrow Manipulator, so they are hoping to be able to hit into my face twice, but it only ends up hitting once. It wasn't that likely that it was going to work out that way for them, and then they'll end up in very shortly conceding because there isn't a particular way that they'll be able to deal with this board state that I have here. Okay, so going into the game against the Shaman, I am keeping my Swordshiner, I'm keeping my Quick Pick, I'm keeping Prep, and I'm keeping Dubious Purchase. I do get a relatively decent hand to be able to deal with their minions and such, because a Photon Cannon can deal with their you know, their lower statted minions, while Quick Pick and Swordshiner can deal with them quite easily as well. I don't particularly have any play that I want to be doing on this turn. Like, I could use the coin, but I do opt to use it. Like, it wouldn't have mattered too much if I did or didn't. I didn't really want them to be able to build up too much tempo against me, because the more damage I take in this situation, the more likely they will be able to use Bloodlust and such. They use their hero power to be able to get the 1-1 onto the board, which is obviously quite good for me, because I can just trade my Quick Pick into them. I do end up obviously using the coin for the photon cannon, just because it does mean that I can get my Void Ray down for a cheaper cost as well. They played in their Gorgonzormu, so I have two options that I could do here. I could either use the photon cannon for the Void Ray or play down the Swordshiner. I opt just to use the Swordshiner because it means that my Quick Pick will deal enough damage, but it'll also mean that I get to draw an extra card as well. They end up drawing for their turn. With them not having any board, they aren't able to use any backstage bouncer onto me, which is really good for me. With the Liberator that they have as well, I want to make sure that that's not alive, because I still do keep a smallish board, and I don't particularly want them to be able to AoE it down. I use the Dig for Treasure first, just so then I can get the proc online, and then I just go face with my Quick Pick and I didn't use the photon cannon that turn, just because I may potentially need it for a future turn. They use their siege tank to be able to clear my Void Ray, which is perfectly fine by me. By also using the miniaturize here, I'm able to use my photon cannon while also establishing a little bit of tempo against them, and then I just go face with my weapon. It means I'm not taking any damage to my face as well. And I'm just deciding at the moment, I was just deciding whether to use the Shadow Step or not. So they end up getting a decent sized board with their delicious cheese that they have. So I could next turn be playing down my Artanis if I want to, but it doesn't really deal too much to their board state that they have. Because obviously having the Divine Shield and then also having the 4 boards isn't going to do too much for me. I use the Chrono boost just to be able to get a few extra cards. It means that I'm also setting up for future turns as well. And with the Void Ray and the Scoundrel, I am able to get my board state reduced down quite a bit to be able to deal with them. So I use I do end up using my High Templar here to be able to get it down to a reduced cost, so then I can clear their board a little bit easier. It means I can also deal a little bit more with them. That's somewhat is a little bit of a misplay in terms of I'm not going to be able to reuse that with the combo, because of the Artanis, and I've already used 2 photon cannons. So it means that I won't be able to use it as an Archon without the other one without getting the other one into my hand. But it does mean that I'm able to deal with their board relatively efficiently to make it so they're not able to trade as well into me. They end up playing down their backstage bouncer, which is you know, obviously a little bit scary for what could happen for it. It is quite powerful to be dealing with them. They do trade into my dude as well, which is good for me too. I use the prep and then the dubious purchase here just to be able to make sure or see what I end up hitting into. It possibly was better just to play down the Scoundrel and then play down the Void Ray, clear the backstage bouncer, and then use the prep dubious purchase to make sure it was guaranteed. I end up trading into the 5-4. The 4-5 with my 5-4, and it obviously means that their board is clear now. I do have access to my Artanis next turn as well, and I do have obviously a cover artist to be able to use onto my to make my Archon if I need to. So they end up just using their Horn of the Windlord, which obviously means that they do clear the board that's here. I do have my High Templar that's in my hand, but I won't be able to use the Sonya combo on it at the moment either because of the reduction that's there. I do just use a backstab onto the 2-1. Obviously it gets rid of it out of my hand, and then I end up just using the 2 minions to go face, the 2 zealots to go face. It reduces them down to 7 health, and they're not really sitting on a board position that will be able to deal with me that easily. I obviously do have the High Templar and the Shadow Step to be able to deal with them. But, yeah, they're not sitting in a very good position anyway, so I was just thinking of how I could best deal with them. So I end up winning that game, obviously. Going to the next game, I'm playing against a Hunter. So with Zerg Hunter, your Mulligan is going to be pretty similar. You want to keep your Swordshiner, your Quick Pick, your prep and your chrono boost. I do end up keeping only keeping one of the Swordshiners just because of the fact that it's a bit too slow to keep both of them, especially since I'd be looking for a quick pick or for some of my other draw cards. I don't really want to just be stuck with two of the Swordshiners in my hand. They end up using a tracking, which is perfectly fine. I still don't 100% know what deck they're playing, if they're just playing the Grunter Hunter, if they're playing Zergling Hunter or anything like that. So it is important that I do make sure that I am dealing as much face damage as I can to them, just in case they are a Grunter Hunter. Because if they are, it obviously means that they can deal quite a lot of damage to me. The Parrot Sanctuary shows that they're going to be playing the Location Hunter that uses the Zerg minions plus Seaside Giant. So my idea is that I'm going to be using my Chrono Boost and going aggressively into them, which should be able to overwhelm them. I'm going to be using Glacial Shark more than likely to stop one of their giant plays that they potentially will have. Next turn I'm just going to be playing Chrono Boost down because obviously that's going to be the strongest of my plays that I can do. It's a bit odd that they used ETC so early in their hand, so it is showing that their hand is relatively weak as well. So yeah, like I do, they end up passing their turn over to me, and then what I'm going to do is backstab onto the 4/4. There's not really any change that I'd be doing otherwise for it anyway. It gets me my 3/4 obviously into my hand as well, and I'm just deciding how I'm going to deal with it. So I end up trading my face into it and then dealing the extra damage. It means that I've established a wider board doing that way. And I've only taken a little bit of damage anyway, which was just from that. So it's not really any too big a concern for me. So they play down their Incendious and then their Parrot Sanctuary. It does mean that they can play the Glacial Shard, so it's important that I am going to be clearing this board that they have. So drawing into the prep obviously is quite good for me. It means that I can use the prep and Dubious Purchase play onto them, but I'll use the Scoundrel, so it means I can also get the Scoundrel value down as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade into the 2/1, I'll then use the Dubious Purchase. I did prep before that just so then I could get the extra discount onto my Dubious Purchase, and then I'm going face with my face, and I'm just deciding, and I'm going to use Backstab onto my 4/3, just so then I don't overdraw, since my hand still doesn't have too much in it in the way of shadow steps or anything like that. So going into their turn, I am sitting quite strong for myself, like because turn 6 I'll be able to activate my Artanis if I need to. They end up just playing down their spawning pool, so they'll get more of their locations online doing this. It means that they'll be able to activate Seaside Giant relatively soon too, which they end up doing, so I do have access to my Glacial Shard this turn, which will be strong for me. I have the 2 Photon Cannons in my hand as well, so it means I can trade relatively easily using the Photon Cannons. So I trade one of my minions so I can get the Photon Cannon value, and I use Quick Pick so I can draw an extra card first. I then put the extra Photon Cannon down, and now I've got Void Ray down as 1 mana, so I'm just deciding what the best way to go about this next turn is. I do have my my dude down to 4 as well, so it means that next turn I'll be able to use Sonya if I need to be able to deal 18 damage to them as well, because I've also got the 1-cost Pirate in my hand as well, the Sandbox Strudel. So next turn more than likely is just going to be Sonya plus Strudel plus Templar, and then the second Templar, and it'll be the game through that. They end up using their Bob to freeze my board, so it obviously just means that it puts me as a stalemate for it. So I end up just double checking that I do have enough space, so I've got the Shadow Step in my hand anyway, so just making sure that I don't make the mistake with it. So I put my Shadow Step down onto my 2/1. It doesn't really matter which one I did Shadow Step in this situation. I play down the Sonya, I then play down my Sandbox Strudel, and then I play down the High Templar, and then I'll be able to get the next High Templar as well using it that way. And then obviously it turns into the Archon, and then it's just game from there. If I was really desperate, I could have used Cover Artist to be able to get the extra Archon down too, so yeah, it's not too much of an issue. If I needed to deal more damage in that turn, I would have been able to do 24 by using the second Sandbox Strudel and then put it onto the Cover Artist. Cover Artist would turn into Archon, and then the Archon would go into my hand rather than like another Cover Artist, so it ends up being quite strong for it. Yeah, so I end up, I have the Deafen in my hand. I also have my Templar Quick Pick and my Burglar, so I'm just going to pass this turn. Next turn I'll be playing down the Quick Pick. Usually these, what a lot of Priest players are doing at the moment is quite an aggressive build, so it's important that I am going and playing for tempo as well. Obviously turn 2 is going to be playing down the Quick Pick. I could have gone for a Chrono boost in that turn if I wanted to, but it is best just getting the weapon established to make sure I can establish tempo down onto them as well. The Chrono boost play would have been fine as well in that situation too. They end up using their trusty fishing rod, so that does get them a minion out of their deck, but with the play that I have, it means I can get my weapon online as well, and I'm just deciding whether to trade face or just to trade into their minion. I opt to go for their face just to deal a little bit extra damage to them. Since they're using the aggro version, there's not too many heal cards in their deck, so it means that it's quite easy to deal enough damage to them by doing it in that particular order. I do have my prep and my coin as well, so next turn I'll be able to make use of those different cards that are available to me. I have Chrono Boost available as well if I wanted to. So I end up using the Chrono Boost just to draw my cards first. I get a Photon Cannon as well, which is quite useful, so I can use the Photon Cannon to go onto the 3/3 and heal if I need to. The Deafen gets rid of the Divine Shield and the Divine Shield that's there as well, and I just use the Photon Cannon to go onto the 3/3, and then I send the rest of my damage face. If I was trading into the face with the Miracle Salesman, I would have hit the Miracle Salesman with my weapon first, and then use the Photon Cannon just to make sure that I was getting the extra health, but there's no point in this situation trading because I'm the aggressor at the moment, and since their board is quite weak, they didn't have any particular play they could easily do against me. So going into this turn, I do end up getting my prep, which is quite good, especially since I have a Chrono boost in my hand. So I use the prep and then put the Chrono boost down. It gets me the High Templar and Artanis, which will be good for the future turn for me. And I'm just deciding what my next sort of play is going to be, because I end up using the Photon Cannon just to reduce down the cost of my Void Ray. And with my Void Ray being cheaper, it means that I can just play it down for tempo if I need to. There's no particular reason to be playing down the Glacial Shard at the moment. So I have a 3/4 and a 3/2 on the board, which is quite strong. And then playing down this Soothe Fancy doesn't really do too much for them at the moment, so I do have quite a commanding board presence at the moment, especially since I can use my 3/2, well, my other 3/2 that's in my hand to trade effectively into them. They end up getting the Deafen proc off, which is a little bit difficult for me, but because I've got such a strong board state at the moment, it's not really too much of a concern. So I end up playing down the Swordshiner, and I just go face because there isn't any particular play that I'm really worried about. I play down the Void Ray and trade into the 3/3, and I'm just deciding whether to use the Shadow Step, and I end up opting to use I end up not using the Shadow Step. I could have used the Shadow Step in this situation as well. It would have been pretty similar, but with the High Templar, I was thinking about using that potentially if I needed to, or with the Artanis minion. That's the reason why I didn't do the Void Ray. So yeah, it's correct or incorrect. It doesn't really matter too much which sort of play in that situation. Like, it would have been okay using the Shadow Step on it, but the Artanis minion does the same sort of thing for it anyway, and being able to use the extra charge proc onto them. So this turn I end up just playing down the Artanis. I've got the 3 damage from my weapon, plus I do have the Shadow Step as well for the Zealot to be able to bring it back into my hand, which does end up winning the game for me. Yeah. So if you've enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe. I really appreciate the support, and bye for now.